Hello and welcome, and in today's video I'm going to share with you the top 10 most interesting Ark creatures. In at number 10 is the Rino Ganatha, and this is now Ark's most recent tame, and it is definitely one which is an extremely interesting one, as no other Ark creature is like this thing at all, and no other Ark creature has the same taming method as this. It is just a completely different creature from everything around it, but it does seem to be that all of the new Ark creatures that are being added do have new and innovative taming methods. And the Rino Ganatha is no different. This thing has a very long and extensive tame method, which you can go and watch my guide on if you do want to know how to tame a Rino Ganatha. But there are many guides out there, and a lot of Ark players now do know how to tame one. But if you haven't tamed one yet, and you are of the high enough skill level and the high enough level in the game, I think you have to at least be like 96, 97 to get the saddle. It's a really high level, but what would you expect? This thing can literally pick up Rexes. Then you should definitely go tame one of these things, and they're very interesting tames, and ones which in my opinion are a bit overused, especially in PvP, as they're just so OP, and I do probably think that they should get nerfed at some point, especially because they're an ASA as well, and ASA is supposed to be a little bit more primitive than normal Ark in a sense for the time being, before all the other DLCs came out. And now that there's obviously tech from day one and the Rino Ganatha's in the game, and I've actually experienced a Rino Ganatha attack in ASA, yeah, it's a little bit unbalanced, but what would you expect out of Ark? Really, that is just kind of the way Ark goes, but hopefully all of those issues are fixed for Ark 2. But still, the Rino Ganatha is so different from many other Ark tames, and it is a really new and innovative one. Next up, we have the Astrodelphus, and this thing first came around when Gen 2 came out, and it was a really innovative tame, and there was no other creatures really with its taming method, and it really is an interesting one. Essentially what you do is you'll pet it and then feed it element, albeit yes, it isn't the most interesting taming method out of Gen 2, there are some more interesting ones. It is still a really innovative and interesting Ark tame, which is definitely one you should get at some point, although its saddle level is extremely high and it does use a lot of element, but that really isn't a problem on Gen 2. And I'm not sure about Fjorda. They do spawn on Fjorda, but I'm not quite sure about element on Fjorda, as I really have not played much Fjorda, and loads of you out there I know who watch this channel do play Fjorda, or you're playing ASA now, because ASA is out on PC, but for you console players, most of you are probably playing Fjorda at this point, or one of the newer DLC maps, or just one of the paid DLC maps if you're like me, and I spend most of my time on the paid DLC maps, like Operation Extinction Gen 1 and Gen 2, albeit yes, Gen 1 is an unpopular one overall with the community, but it is still a really great one. But back to the Astrodelphus, this is a really great and innovative tame with a new and interesting taming method, which isn't really found with any other Ark tame, and it is definitely a cool creature. But just before we continue, make sure to hit that like and subscribe button, as it really does help out the channel. Next up is the Astrocetus, and this is essentially the Astrodelphus, but in some ways and a lot of ways more innovative and interesting, partly because it came first obviously, and at that stage nothing had really been done with space and Ark. That didn't really exist, and now with the lunar biome on Gen 1 when it came out, and with this new space whale, Astrocetus meaning space whale, and Astrodelphus if you didn't know, space dolphin, this was something which we had never seen in Ark before, and albeit yes, its taming method isn't very inventive, as it uses the same one as many other Ark tames. You just shoot cannons into this thing's face. Yes, that's not the most inventive, but its design and thought that was put into this creature really makes this an interesting tame, and I do urge you to tame one at some point, as it has many uses, especially if you're a PvP Ark player. The Bloodstalker, yet again another Gen 1 Ark tame, and one which I think you should tame at some point, and actually one of the more useful ones, as you can essentially just become Spider-Man on this thing, and who wouldn't want to become Spider-Man in Ark? And also the Bloodstalker is filled with a wealth of abilities too, and when it came out its taming method was like no other. Essentially you'll need to use the blood syringe, which can be very easily crafted and unlocked at a low level, then you'll just pump blood out of your player until you have enough blood bags, and then go up to this thing. It will grapple you from in a tree, and it will just suck the blood bags out of your body, and then you tame yourself a Bloodstalker. And I think you could feed it some like tames first to get 100% effectiveness, but I have never bothered with that, but I know some people have. And if you really do find a high level and you want 100% effectiveness, I think you do need to feed it some smaller creatures first. The Moss Chops is a very good example, as it is quick and easy to transport. I mean, yes, it's not the quickest creature out there, but it's quick to transport, and with cryopods just being so available on Gen 1, it is really easy, it's small, it's portable, and it's easy to get 100% effectiveness with the Moss Chops. And in terms of learning how to fly the Bloodstalker, is a very new and interesting mechanism which no other Ark creature actually uses, still to this day, even though Gen 2, I think, came out like it must have been 2 years ago, 2021, I think, or 2020. That's when Gen 1 came out, and it is still a very new and innovative thing in terms of Ark. And if you do learn it, it is great for getting hexagons on Gen 1, and it is a great new way of transport, albeit it has been out for a while now. It is still a really new and interesting Ark design, which I think should be revisited. The Rock Drake is pretty much like nothing that came before it, and some people may be saying, why is the Rock Drake more innovative than the Bloodstalker? And it is partly just because it is in the much earlier stages of Ark. I think this was way back in 2017, at least I think that's when Operation came out, and no other Ark creature at the time was like this thing, and it was the first kind of glider introduced into the game, and it was just such a new way of controlling a creature which simply hadn't been added to Ark at that point, and it was just such an interesting tame for so many people. And albeit its taming method was just borrowed from the wyverns of Scorched Earth, requiring you to steal its egg and then obviously incubate it to get yourself a Rock Drake, that was still another really big challenge in Operation, and a lot more than in Scorched Earth, as it is so much more of a mission to get into a Rock Drake nest than it is a wyvern nest, as no flyers are allowed on Operation, which is something which had never ever been done before, and it added a new style of gameplay. And with the Rock Drake on top of that, it just added a new way for Ark players to tame, and definitely a very interesting one. And albeit the Rock Drake doesn't really carry over to other maps well, and Operation is definitely a weird map in terms of transferring, even though Rock Drakes do spawn on other maps, and I really wish they still spawned on Crystal Isles, but that was only the original mod version before it came an actual map. The Rock Drake, when it came out, was an extremely innovative and interesting tame, which many players still use to this day, and it is still an Ark staple. In at number 5 is the Manag, and this is obviously a more later tame coming out in Extinction and not Operation. And the Manag controls like no other Ark tame, and you could kind of put the gas bags in this spot as well, and this is a very weird controlling of an Ark creature, but the gas bags isn't on this list, and I'm going to talk about the Manag. And nowadays the Manag is definitely exploited for PvP, albeit it isn't as popular now as it has been nerfed, but it is still an insane thing used for PvP griefing. But in terms of its just general uses and abilities as a creature, this thing can zip across the map, and Extinction is really when Ark began to become unbalanced, as Extinction is like no other Ark map. Even the Genesis expansions can't even live up to what Extinction is. Everything is just so much more buff and powerful, and you just need gigas to do bosses, and you just need more powerful creatures to get through the insanely difficult bosses that lie on Extinction, and all of the creatures are just more powerful, so all of that is possible. And the Manag is definitely an extremely powerful tame, capable of so many things, although still to this day it is extremely buggy. Its main ability obviously being that it can freeze creatures, and it can freeze creatures for absolutely ages, and the fact that it can quickly zip away after that is just something that is absolutely insane, and that had never been done before. Now in comes the Shadow Main, and this is a Gen 2 creature, the same map that the Astrodelphus spawned in, and this is a significantly more innovative tame, and it just did something which no other Ark creature now can really stand in. It is just so densely packed with abilities, and it's just such an interesting and innovative tame that nothing can really stand to the Shadowmane. This thing can zip across the map with insane speed, it can jump to incredible heights, which no other land creature of this size can really do, as the Shadowmane is actually pretty small for a carnivore, and it really does pack a punch for its size, and it has the pack buffs as well. Obviously it's quite similar to the Deinonychus in some ways, but the Deinonychus is essentially just a smaller raptor with some improved bleed abilities, whereas the Shadowmane has an all new, albeit really difficult taming method, a really cool and new innovative design, and also just some really nice cool uses which we had never seen in Ark before, and it is definitely an OP creature which, if you can get over the hurdle of taming it, is definitely one worth the tame. In at number 3 is the Reaper, and the fact that this thing came out in 2017 is absolutely insane. This is just such a well-rounded, well-balanced, well-modelled, well-sounded, just well-everythinged Ark creature, and one which is extremely interesting and has a extremely amazing taming method, one of which has never been done before, obviously, until this thing came out, and I think no other Ark creature to this day uses the same method, apart from, you could kind of say, the Rino Ganatha kind of goes along the same lines, as it does use impregnation, and instead of the Rino Ganatha, well, it will impregnate your dino, this will impregnate you, the player, and it doesn't obviously matter if you're male or female. Some people probably thought that at the time, but no, it doesn't matter at all. And if you're on Gen 2, you're in luck, as these things are really easy to tame and you can get your hands on one really quickly. But on Operation, they are so much more fun to tame, as the progression of getting up to taming one of these things is absolutely insane. And then once you've even been impregnated by one, which you can do by lowering a Reaper Queen to 1000 health and then going up to it, then it will impregnate you, then gathering all of that XP to get 100% effectiveness, it is just such a really cool and interesting process. And then the fact that the baby will kill you multiple times once you've actually birthed it is a really nice and interesting thing which has never been done again. And next up is the Desmodus, which is another really recent Ark tame, and definitely one of great interest to so many Ark players of PvP and of PvE. In terms of its taming method, it follows the exact same one as the Bloodstalker, but obviously it isn't just a Bloodstalker on steroids, it does many different things, and it also offers a new and innovative way to gather those blood bags. As blood bags, you can literally just extract from creatures now, instead of having to extract them from your own self, which makes Bloodstalker tames extremely easy now, as the blood bags are really not hard to obtain. And it has the glide ability like the Griffin and the Snow Owl. It can grapple onto walls like the Tapijara. It can turn invisible at night, which you can't do on Extinction, as in the Wastelands it's never nighttime. I don't know if it will work in the desert and ice domes, but I guess you'll have to give that a try. And with Sanguine Elixir as well, tames are an absolute cheat with this thing, and it is such a good, interesting and innovative Ark tame, it is deserving of the number 2 spot. But what is in number 1? In at number 1 is the Vonaur, and the reason why I have put this tame in number 1, and why you may be disagreeing with me, as you think many of other Ark creatures should be deserving of this number 1 spot, this creature is just so interesting to me, as no other Ark creature has the same ability as this one, and it is a really good and useful Ark tame, especially on Extinction, and it has a really nice, albeit simple taming method, just being the normal knockout one, and its simplicity and yet complexity in its abilities is what makes this creature really interesting to me, as it is just a new spin on an Ark tame, albeit it did come out on Extinction and that was ages ago now, but it is still to this day a really cool and interesting creature to me. No other Ark creature is literally a turret which can just fire spines out into creatures, and it can shake spines around with its tail, and it can just do its normal kind of hack and slash abilities as well. The Velonasaur is really a great all-rounder. It's pretty good for traveling. It's actually alright for metal runs, as its weight isn't too bad, and obviously it is excelling in all of its combat abilities. It is just so good at anything to do with long range combat, and it's pretty good in the short range as well. Definitely the most interesting Ark Tame I have ever seen. But anyway, that is the end of today's video, and I hope that you enjoyed. And as always, comment down below your top 10 most interesting Ark Tames in your opinion, and I will see you all later.